everyone for your patience while we got queued up. I'm excited to be here today, mostly to help empower you to understand how you can use AI to completely transform your career development pathway. I know that it's a new and emerging topic that some of us are just now beginning to experiment with and explore, but it is something that is shaping the world of work. So this is a wonderful opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Dixon, for your partnership and consideration to present, to share with you some of the strategies and tools that you can use as a graduate student and even an alumni to really transform how you're approaching your career progression. And one of the things that I'm most proud of with this entire series is that we have our entire department here, USI Career Success Center, where we got to brainstorm and evaluate what is some of the feedback that we've received from graduate students and what they're navigating right now in the world of work when they're going to apply or seek a promotion. How is embedded AI within applicant tracking systems impacting them? Or how are the interfaces on job boards impacting them? So we've really tried to gather the feedback from actual graduate students and build this forward in a way that it's going to give you a look behind the recruiting world. And that's kind of my entire background in recruiting and talent acquisition in the world of the workforce, is what can I do to make sure you understand how the process works so that you can navigate it with strategy, intention, focus, and targeted results and success. So as we get started, one of the first things I want to share with you is that you already have what it takes to succeed in the modern workplace right now. It's just really taking a moment to understand how we intentionally focus your expertise to communicate that value to potential employers. Not only new ones that you might be encountering, but if you're trying to get a promotion within your current organization, because you've invested years in your learning and your development growth, pursuing your graduate degree, and you really harness the power of specialized knowledge and expertise. And the experience, when you translate it in a targeted way, whether that's through your CV, your resume, or your interview skills, gives people a memorable impression and helps you stand out as a top candidate. And everything that you do in the graduate program, whether that's a project, a practicum, a fellowship, or research contribution, is a way that you can position yourself strategically, even in the competitive workspace today. So this really was built with you in mind to help you, even if you're starting from ground zero, to understand how to develop a very strategic plan for your career development, but harness the AI capabilities. And as we go through this, I'm going to share a little bit of what you're going to receive access to resource and tool-wise. So first things first, this is an inspiration from Kira that I have to give a shout out of gratitude to. Let's take a look at a roadmap to see where this webinar series journey takes you. I want you to think of it as a two-phase approach. For phase one, we're really focusing on establishing your professional brand. So parts 1 and 2 of the webinar series are focused on your core document creation. That includes your CV, your resume, and even a cover letter. But specifically, I want to make sure that you understand how to develop those documents with an AI aid, but not replacing your authentic voice. We're going to progress through our digital presence and search strategy in parts 3 and 4. And then we're going to move on to our strategic networking in part 5. As we promote to phase 2, this is where that core foundation really launches and takes on a life of its own, because this is where we focus on mastering the market and your advancement. So for parts 6 and 7, we touch on 2 critical components, including your interview mastery skills, whether that's an in-person interview or a 100% AI interview online where you're never talking to a person, but you're being evaluated on your performance. And we also talk about salary negotiation, which is a key component to have a skill set adaptation for. You don't want to leave money on the table early in your career because it does impact your earning power over the course of your career. From there, we do a deep dive into, I want you to think of this not just as global differentiation, but geographic. Have you worked in a different state, a different city, or a different country? How can you communicate that as a strategic advantage and unique value offering to an employer? And from there, we finish strong with our finale of Your Degree Your Way. For those that are really looking to try to earn a career progression within their current organization, how do you go about that? How do you communicate the value of your graduate degree? And how do you prepare to step into more advanced leadership positions to leverage that newfound expertise? So as we start exploring this, I want you to understand that all of these modules are really built one on top of another to give you the experience of if you were to hire an executive coach and pay for these consulting services, it's usually about a few $1,000s worth of services. But you've paid tuition with USI. USI has a standing commitment to you, even as a graduate, as an alumni, to where we're going to continue to offer you career success support. So I want you to think of this as free webinars that not only you can access, that's backed by research and data, but it's also paired with some powerful AI tools and a partnership from the USI Career Success Center, where you can get individualized one-on-one appointments with a career coordinator to talk about your unique challenges. So you can either start from the first webinar and watch all the way through to part 9, or pick up on the module you need most in the moment and begin there. Now, as we start looking at this, we have to acknowledge something incredibly crucial. The career landscape has changed, which is why this series was invented. I can still remember applying to one of my first jobs where I actually responded in a newspaper, mailed in my resume with a self-addressed stamped envelope, and I waited to hear if I was going to get a response. As you can imagine, those positions were still considered somewhat competitive, but not to the market saturation we see today with online application capabilities. We know through research that 97% of Fortune 500 companies are now using ATS with embedded AI, or an applicant tracking system, to filter resumes before a human reviewer even sees them. We also know that 72% of recruiters use LinkedIn to source and evaluate candidates. And we've seen some commonly cited statistics that estimate up to 85% of jobs are filled through networking, referrals, and internal connections. That means we cannot afford to not be optimized and visible online and learn how to use AI for our benefit, but still keep an empowered, authentic voice. So as we look at this changed landscape, let's talk about what actions we can take to transform our approach. The first, you're going to have accessible to you, I believe it's a 94-page guide now. It's a PDF, Your AI Copilot Career Toolkit. Remember when I told you I wanted to give you a peek behind the recruiter window to know and understand what are they looking for when they're evaluating a candidate? But what is this ATS system that she's talking about? So throughout this guide, you get real prompts to practice with, real educational simulations to run through, to understand what's an algorithm, how does it impact me? What does, because not all ATS systems do, but what does an ATS system that parses and assigns a score to give me a percentage match to the job description I've applied for? What does that actually look like? What does a queue of candidates look like? How do I use Boolean operators or SEO strategy? So rather than keep this as this kind of ambiguous concept I want you to be aware of, I'm going to give you visuals throughout this guide, which is completely free to you. Pick it up and figure out what part you want to focus on first. I'm a big believer in doing research to understand and having visuals to identify what it is I'm facing. I always recommend also starting with your personal brand statement. What do you want to be known for? What's your unique value offering? From there, you can build forward. And throughout each stage, as you progress through this toolkit and through the webinar series, you're going to find something phenomenal is happening. You're going to transform your approach to how you interact with AI. It becomes your co-pilot. You remain the driver, but you develop such a beautiful laser-focused strategy and AI fluency skills that now when you go into interviews, you can speak with confidence exactly how you're utilizing AI, how you're retaining your critical thinking, and how you're using it as potentially a thought partner, but not your replacement. Because being able to convey what your AI skills are is incredibly powerful, not just being able to use them with your career search, but in your day-to-day work life as well. As we move forward, you're going to see that this career toolkit is really going to help you learn what some of these key terms are. So I want to give you a little bit of a sampling. One of the first things we think about when we're optimizing a LinkedIn profile is having key terms included, right? Because ATS systems and LinkedIn are essentially a digital filing cabinet. They're not there to decide who qualifies and who disqualifies. They're there to keep everyone gathered together in a database that is searchable by a recruiter. So a recruiter is going to enter certain Boolean operators, like I want critical thinking and program development. Once they enter that into the ATS is then going to rank by priority the candidates who have that specified on their resumes and their application materials. So ATS doesn't reject you, but it does profile you, right? And you want to be searchable and discoverable. So how do you find those key terms? One of the first best examples that I love to do, take the job description and put it into Copilot. Ask it to identify the top SEO terms or the top 10 skills a recruiter's looking for. Then you can use AI to perform a gap analysis. Compared to your de-identified resume, because we don't want to put our confidential information in, where is it that you could strengthen your resume, speak to your transferable skills or what it is you've had experience-wise to really strengthen your application materials or prepare for an interview? Now, if you want to do a deeper dive for your LinkedIn profile, search for 6 to 10 job descriptions. And I want you to run an analysis across that gambit of those 6 to 10 job descriptions, because now we're really identifying key SEO terms or search engine optimization. You want to make sure that's in your headline, your about section, and your work experiences, and you peg those as skills on your LinkedIn profile, because LinkedIn has an ATS system too. And recruiters are searching for talent there just as much as they are through their own ATS queue after you apply for a role. Now, you might be wondering what SEO is, and we use an example in the guide. I want you to think about if your friend turns to you at 7 o'clock on Wednesday night and says, hey, I'm really craving Thai food. How would you find Thai food? The best example is you're probably going to go to Google and Thai food near me. This is the same concept that makes you discoverable to a recruiter. And when you understand how to use these components and evaluation analysis with Copilot, it makes you so much more targeted and focused. We're also going to take you through some exercises of how you can create really strong engineered prompts, because you don't want to just ask AI a question and walk away. You want to give it an identity. You want to make it a subject matter expert in something. You want to give it a role specific. You want to outline what output you want. You want to make sure you clarify what you don't want. And these are some of the capabilities that speak to your critical thinking and analysis skills. So really everything that you've been doing in your graduate studies is exactly what you're applying to your engineered prompts for AI when you're creating your career development materials. And as we go through this, you'll see that every webinar has some of these sample Copilot prompts embedded in that you can start practicing with. The best part about this course or this webinar series that I want to emphasize is how you're going to learn to use AI with ethical integrity in mind. We've already touched on how important it is for you to be the author and not to lose your authentic voice. But do you know why? One of the biggest things that we have to consider with ethical integrity in AI is that we never want to represent AI work as our own, and we never want to fail to do a quality check with what its output is. What I can tell you is from the many resumes that I've reviewed, not only as a recruiter, but now as a career coordinator, is I can tell the disconnect between a ChatGPT generated resume and the human being when they're in front of me interviewing. One of the first dead giveaways is if you ask someone a question off of their resume and they have no idea what you're talking about, because they got so used to auto-generating their materials, or they paid a subscription service to auto-apply for them, they forgot what was in the document. So you can use it to help you figure out how to structure a bullet point to be higher impact, or do that keyword, key skill analysis so you know what skills to include. But really go in and remember, your resume is your movie trailer for your introduction. Your CV is your academic integrity and reputation on the line. Would you trust someone else to create a document for you, never look at it and submit it? This is why your voice matters and that quality check matters. And especially, you don't want to sound generic. I guarantee you that whatever ChatGPT creates or Copilot creates as a resume for you, it's done for hundreds of thousands of other people. And when we're talking about an applicant queue of, on average, we see about 250 applications for some of these online job postings, sometimes more, depends on the size of the organization. Do you want to sound like 200 other people? Or do you want to sound like your unique self with your specialized expertise and education that you bring to the role? Next, when we talk about that verification, I do find it important to caution you that sometimes AI can make things up. This is why we have to use guardrails. Is anyone familiar with the term hallucination? Because that's literally what it's called when AI makes something up. This is why that quality check is so important. And along the lines of integrity, this is also why we disclose if something was AI assisted in its generation. And I'm going to give you a little tip. Everything that you see for this webinar series and for the Copilot Toolkit was AI assisted, and you will see disclosures on the materials for that. I don't want to keep this a mystery. I do also want to make sure that I encourage you to stay current. It's not that much extra time to make sure you're reading some of the news updates to understand what's changing, not only in the labor market, but in the world of AI. If there's important updates to Copilot or whichever AI agent you happen to be using, make sure that you keep your skills fresh and keep making sure you're pushing yourself forward with your fluency so you stay relevant not only for the world of work, but as that labor market, job market is changing and adjusting too. As we go on, let's touch a little bit on those core portfolio pieces that you can help get created with AI. One of the biggest ones that you're going to hear people refer to is using it for your CV development or your resume development and making sure it's ATS compliant. One of the biggest misunderstandings is that if you use AI to generate these materials, it's automatically going to be ATS compliant. This is a falsehood. ATS is very, very, very simple when it comes to their programming. I want you to kind of picture a kindergartner reading with their finger from left to right, because those really fancy templates that you can buy off the internet like Etsy or Pinterest or Canva, it cannot scan accurately highly visual documents that have been graphic designed. It doesn't like text boxes. It doesn't like columns. Please never put your photo on any of your application materials, CV or resume. You want a very clean, simple Word document that is just one column. And what's most important is that you double, triple, quadruple check for any spelling errors or punctuation errors. You want to make sure you have a clean, formatted document from top to bottom. And whatever you start doing at the top of your document, you follow through with that formatting consistency all the way through. This makes it not only for ATS, easy for ATS to scan, but also reduces eye strain for a human reviewer. And trust me, there is nothing worse than reading what sounds like a beautiful candidate and they say they have attention to detail, and then you find your first spelling error or typo. It kind of makes you call into question that ability to have attention to detail. But when you're using Copilot, you can use it for keyword extraction, action verb optimization, or even to give you some ideas for graduate level positioning language. Additionally, with your cover letter, if the resume is a very static document that's listing your best qualifications for the role you're applying for, I want you to think of your cover letter as a personal narrative where you get to go a little bit more in depth and speak to your value add for that role. Please don't let ChatGPT or Copilot strip away the personal narrative that makes your application compelling. You want to bring your authenticity and you want to bring your heart to a cover letter. And some people look at me when I say that and they go, wait, that's not the point though. But it really is, because you want to stand out from a sea of generic applications where people are feeding their materials through some type of AI, LMS, and or LLM, sorry, and then just submitting that without further review or anything to make it unique. Additionally, for your LinkedIn profile, I want you to consider that same lens. because this is a core portfolio piece. I don't want to push you to have a profile if you feel uncomfortable with it, but I do want you to think of it as a powerful networking tool. And we've had a change with the algorithm for LinkedIn for 2026. The algorithm is not giving you visibility based on how often you interact with your profile anymore or with other people. It's for how clarified your profile is, specific to your specialization for what you do for the world of work. So the more that you can call that out with your headline, your about section, your work experiences is what's actually going to make you more discoverable by recruiters, but also amazing mentors, peers, colleagues, and thought leaders that you can connect with, develop these relationships with, and explore possibilities together with. And finally, interview prep. Has anyone ever used Copilot for interview prep? I love it. I get really excited when I start exploring from this type of an angle. I'll give you an example. We had a graduate student that came to us that was very nervous when it came to interviews. So one of the first things we did was use Copilot to try to identify that unique value offering. What do you want to be known for professionally? What's your personal brand? That carried through to the resume development and to the cover letter, and then to the LinkedIn profile development. Because, hey, if I get called for an interview, I want my LinkedIn profile that's on my resume to make sure when they go visit me, everything's updated and compatible. They should complement one another. We then went in to generate not only company research and interview questions to practice, but we performed a gap analysis. Based on the responses, here's what we typed in. This is what I said. This was my response. How could I have strengthened this? How could I have made this a more vivid star story for, really painting a picture with a memorable story of how I applied this skill that's relevant to this role by responding to this question. We then played with Google Notebook LM to make a customized, empowered AI host podcast that was interactive. So this person could sit through a confidence coaching interview strategy session, but talk to the host and ask them questions and clarify information. They then went through in-person mock interviews with me to practice that skill live. The benefit of this was because they had practiced probably a wealth of, I would say, 25 to 30 interview questions with different scenarios. When they got thrown an outlier question, they weren't thrown. They were immediately able to identify, oh, this is a behavior-related question. What would I do in this situation? Here's how I would respond, and here's an example to pull from. That's the power of using AI to help you prepare for your career readiness and career progression. But we go deeper than just these 4 components, but they are covered. Next, let's touch on job search strategy for a second. This one, not to get completely geeked out, but this one makes me very excited. When we start talking about job search strategy, this alone can sound a little bit daunting. Like, okay, where do I get started? I know I need a job. I know I need a resume or a CV, and there's probably going to be an interview, but how do I find the job? Where do I go? If we use exactly what those recruiters are doing, the Boolean operators and a Google search bar, we can get targeted results, and we can reduce, on average, 80% of the outside noise and irrelevant roles that would be a distraction. Who here would prefer to apply to 100 roles and hope to get 1 interview, or 5 targeted roles where you have warm connections that could give you referrals? I'd rather take the 5. I don't know about anybody else. That's the power of using a Boolean operator on a Google board to make sure that you are yielding results specific to what you want, not just industry, not just job title, not just pay, but even geographic regions. Once you start playing with this capability, you're going to find results that are beautifully relevant to you, but also are fresher postings. If anyone's ever had the experience of applying for a job and not hearing anything, and you look at it and you're like, I saw that posting 30 days ago, 60 days ago, 90 days ago. I never heard back. Did they hire? Did they not? We refer to those as ghost postings. Some of them can be spam. Some of them can be postings that were forgotten about. But if you use your Boolean search strategy on Google, which goes out and scrapes all the job boards, bonus, Boolean operators work on job boards too, like FlexJobs, ZipRecruiter, etc. But if you use it through Google, you can find the most recent listings, and then you can play detective. Go research that company. Can you find that posting on that company website? Can you find a connection that you might know on LinkedIn who could serve as a reference? Now you've done a thorough evaluation, and you know if it's worth your time, especially as a graduate student that could be incredibly busy, right? Or an alumni that could be incredibly busy. Is this worth my line to pursue? Do I have an alignment? Does it fulfill what I'm looking for? So I highly, highly recommend that you try this approach. Next is the AI-assisted job tracking. This is kind of a fun feature. Spreadsheets are amazing. I know that sounds weird, but again, we're going to geek out for a second. If you don't track your results, how do you know which one of your leads are warm leads or which one of your leads are cold leads? You can actually use Copilot to create a customized spreadsheet for you where you're listing out, hey, I'm targeting these organizations, these industries, these job roles. I want you to give me recommendations of 25 companies within a 125-mile radius of this geographic location. And I want you to create a queue base that I can go through and keep updated with where I'm getting responses, where I'm getting interviews, where I'm getting declined. This database becomes important information for you because A, if a recruiter calls you for an interview, you know what date you applied, what your job title was, what your last communication was. If you're sending thank yous, again, you know the date, the job title, the company. But you can also use the database that you create in Copilot to run a gap analysis to identify what's working in my job search, what isn't. How could I transform or modify my approach? I definitely recommend it. And once you start, you'll get kind of addicted. I love when students come back and share their dashboards with me of what they've built. And I love when they go, okay, here's the 50 places I applied. Here's the 15 places worth my time. And here's the 5 interviews I have. I'm going to eliminate this noise and focus on this. And I've seen very successful opportunities arise from that. So I highly, highly recommend it. But next, remember how we talked about that strategic networking and how important it is, especially on digital platforms? You can use AI to help you strategically network. This might sound wild, but I am 100% an introvert. Absolutely. And the idea of networking just for networking alone terrifies me. But I can use Copilot to help me understand, I want to make sure I have a value connection point with X person. Help me see where we could be in alignment on goals, objectives, or opportunities so that I can establish a meaningful connection point and build a relationship. That's less terrifying. Tell me to go meet 100 random people. Okay, can we talk about this for a second? Or tell me, I want you to go meet this person. Here's what they do. Here's something you have in common. You're probably going to get me to stop and talk to you for an hour minimum if you have a cute pet at home. I'm just saying, not that anybody needs that advice, but I will share that. But you can develop a networking plan that is very authentic to you to start where you are. I don't encourage people to just make mass connections. Please don't treat LinkedIn like Facebook and just add people. Look for value. Look for people you know first and expand out authentically, because these become the people that you do want to have coffee chats with or go to lunch with or go to conferences with or ask questions from. So your network should be meaningful and authentic, not just a bunch of numbers with people like, yeah, I have this connection. Okay, when's the last time you talked to them? So AI can really help you with that and crafting your outreach messages and your connection messages. I love to put through, like, I have a mentor that I follow out of London that publishes a lot of articles, and I'll pull up the last 5 articles and I'll pop them in and say, what's a common theme that you're seeing here that would be a really interesting discussion point that we could possibly collaborate on a project together. And then I'll reach out and go, hey, so do you have a minute? I noticed you've been posting and I love the content of what I'm seeing. I want to talk to you about a possible, collaboration opportunity. Are you open? And then usually people are always on board with, okay, what are you thinking? I know how your brain works. I'm intrigued. Where are we going? What are we doing next? But it starts with a value add, not an ask. So start with the people you know, make it authentic, make it meaningful. And remember, when you're brainstorming messages to connect, you're not letting someone write for you. You're analyzing opportunities or value add that you can give, but the words should come from you. And a caution I always like to say is if it takes you less than 5 minutes to do the task, you probably don't need Copilot to do it for you. But if this is a moment where you're like, no, I really want some strategy to be involved to help me brainstorm this, then it's okay. But please don't lean on Copilot as a replacement for you. Now, as we progress, I want to talk about your next steps. And these are the exciting ones, the easy ones. I just want you to access the webinar. Try it out. Listen to some of the modules. Start with what interests you or what your need is first, and go through with your questions. If you want to take a notebook, so that as you're watching and questions come up and you write them down, highly recommend it. There's also going to be some accompanying PDF worksheets that accompany each module. So you can take the time to interact, really think about what the key piece is that you're developing, and write out your thoughts alongside those questions. Next, I would encourage you to download the toolkit. This is a free resource, and it's been put together with a lot of intention and conscious thought to take you on a guided tour behind the curtain of what HR recruiting is seeing and doing, and how you can position yourself with strategy. Go through some of the prompts, some of the practice exercises, see what you like, write down what you don't, identify your pain points, and remember, you're the author. So you can shift and adapt those engineered prompts. If you see one in the workbook that you're like, hey, I want to adjust the language for X, Y, or Z, you can do that and see how it changes your output. But always remember that you can schedule a one-on-one appointment with a career coordinator in the USI Career Success Center for individualized coaching. We offer phone call appointments, Zoom virtual appointments, and in person. And we genuinely love our jobs, and we love to help all students and alumni succeed here at USI. So please don't pay for career coaching elsewhere. Come to us, partner with us, and we'll meet you where you are to talk through the unique challenges that you might be facing. And we're right here on campus in the Orr Success Center. I almost said Orr Success Center. I'm so programmed for saying success. In office 1051, you can call us, you can email us for an appointment, or you can book through Career Launch. It has been a distinct privilege and honor to share not only what some of these career resources are and the capability with partnering with Copilot with you today, but I'm genuinely more excited to continue to connect in the future and see where the future takes you. So does anyone have any questions? And it's okay if you don't, I promise. Yes.
Megan, I think a lot of things that one reads today that we're living longer, and individuals finishing university, whether it be bachelor's or graduate degree, will have more different jobs throughout their working careers. Mm-hmm. How do you that's I think one of the great things about this being accessible to current students and alumni. They can refer back to it if they are in a position where a job change is necessary. But how would you, from your perspective today, see what would be necessary in this process in 10, 20 years? Would this be, this will still be applicable, mm-hmm. but what changes do you see coming in the rapid world of change driven by artificial intelligence?
I would say one of the most common themes that I've been seeing discussed, especially internationally right now, is how AI can be utilized when it comes to the consideration of job applicants. So what you might see is changing legislature that lets recruiters know, hey, you can use it for determination purposes and interviews, or if you're reviewing resumes, or, here are the limitations of what you cannot do. I think it's important to understand that it's not going to go away entirely, though. We do see some movements where you now have a selection to opt out of ATS review and specify you only want a human reviewer. But I think that is not necessarily going to be an option available at all times. So learning how to write really clean, authentic, human-generated materials that just have brainstorming capability with Copilot or AI is important, because we don't want to lose our critical thinking. We don't want to lose our authentic human voice. And we are seeing a very big move towards skills-based hiring as well. So we're seeing more, instead of, I don't know if anyone's heard some of the news articles lately, like, oh, the resume is dead. We're doing away with the resume. There's going to be no more resume. That's not happening anytime in the foreseeable future. But what we are seeing is more projects assigned. We're going to do a skills assessment in your application materials to really see, do you have what it is that we're looking for the role? A beautiful example is a student who just applied for it was an internship to basically be a supervisor with Amazon. Has anyone ever applied for one of those Amazon positions, especially on a production floor? So you have to take a test, and it's going to assess your critical thinking and your analysis. It moves you through to a gamified round where you're put in a simulated warehouse environment, and you have to prioritize what pallet goes where when. And it's timed. After that, you enter a module that's a complete AI interview. It records your responses. You're given about 30 seconds per question, and you only get one do-over attempt. So if you stutter or you weren't prepared, it's the answer it's going to keep because you only get one do-over, and that's submitted. Pretty quickly, I think it was within 48 hours, they were invited for a Zoom panel interview where all the candidates were put into one waiting room together and told how the interviews were going to progress. They had back-to-back round interviews. So there was a production supervisor who interviewed everybody. And then they were broken out into individual session rooms where it was a one-on-one interview. At the end of that, within 1 week, my student had an internship offer. And the wild part about that was it was very gamified. It was very skills-based. It was very heavily reliant upon AI. So luckily we had prepared that, yes, they got the internship offer. But even at the end of that, they went, where's the human touch? So that's what I think we're going to see more movement towards is possible changes in legislation, but also possible humanless, touchless application consideration, especially for organizations that are very large and especially if they're international. I just say pivot. Be curious about everything, learn as much as you can, and look for the thread that connects all of your work experiences, academic experiences, and your volunteer experiences. You could tell me that you're an ex-social worker who used to be a professional dog washer, and now you want to be a grant writer. And I can tell you one thing, you've led with connection, empathy, critical analysis, and relationship building. You can always find a thread. And it's important that you do so you can speak with confidence, no matter what career transition you face.
Any other questions for me? Please join me. Just wanted to take a moment and thank Megan personally. The webinar series that she's referred to here it's absolutely phenomenal. Our graduate assistant here, Maura, went through it. I went through it as well, and Megan was so responsive to some feedback we provided. And she has produced a resource that is going to be so valuable to every graduate student and alumni from our graduate programs. What you've done for our students is just absolutely phenomenal. It really builds on what we tried to do in the Graduate Student Colloquium last year. We have one of our speakers, Rodney Simpson, who spoke last year at that colloquium. Sort of the broad theme was how one's graduate degree improves one's ability to be adaptable and to pivot in a changing work environment. And what Megan has done here is given us an additional toolkit to supplement the content you learn in those graduate programs and to give you that advantage in an extraordinarily competitive and competitive market. So I want to thank all of our directors for what they do, all of our graduate faculty for what they do for our students, and then what Megan has offered here as a means to supplement that. Because every graduate student that I interact with typically wants one of two things: to gain some kind of a promotion or advantage in their current workplace, or to transition to a different, better job. And two things are required to do that. the education secured in our graduate degrees and the tools to leverage that degree and get that advantage in a competitive workplace. Rather than being just one out of 250 or so, Megan's toolkit, Megan's advice has really given each of us the opportunity to rise to the top of that stack. So thank you so much for what you've done. It's really amazing.
Wonderful. Thank
All right,
you.
I'll take a 5-10 minute break here before our next presenter at 1 o'clock. Please feel free to have some coffee, cooking, things like that. And glad you're all here. Thank you.